Wayne's almost here.
He's in there.
He's in there?
Yep.
You
are.
Oh, he's hiding.
There he is.
Hi, Dwayne. All right, call meeting to order, open session. And I'd like to respectfully acknowledge that we are meeting on the traditional lands of the First Nations and have been inhabited by indigenous peoples from the beginning. In particular, I acknowledge the history, spirituality, and culture of the territory of the Anishinaabe Nation, people of the Three Fires, known as the Ojibwe, Odawa, and Potawatomi Nation, and further give thanks to the Chippewas of Saugeen and the Chippewas of Nawash, known collectively as the Saugeen Ojibwe Nation, the traditional keepers of this land. We recognize and deeply appreciate the historic connection to this area, as well as the contributions of the Métis, Inuit, and other indigenous peoples whose ancestors shared this land and waters. May we live with respect for each other in this land and live in peace and friendship with all its diverse peoples. Miigwech. Prior to today's meeting, the board met in closed session to review and discuss matters that in their opinion fell under section 35, item 4 of the Police Services Act, and page 15, section 24, item B of the OSPSB General Policy 003 Board Governance. This time I'd like to turn the floor over to Kayla and conduct the election for the chair for 2024.
Under section 28, item 1 of the Police Services Act 1990, members of a police service board shall at the first regular meeting held in each year elect a member to be chair for the ensuing year. At this time, I would like to call for nominations from the floor for chair.
I can nominate John Thompson for the chair.
John Thompson, will you accept this nomination? Yes. Are there any additional nominations for chair from the floor?
You should friggin' line up, see.
Hearing none, I declare that nominations be closed. By acclamation, Mr. John Thompson will be board chair for 2024.
Thank you. Thank you. What was that? Did he say sucker or something like that?
Section 28, item 2 of PSA also says that members of a board may also elect a vice chair at the first regular meeting in each year. In past years, we have elected not to have a vice chair. What are your wishes for 2024?
Same wishes good. We don't need a vice chair.
Okay, congratulations, Mr. John Thompson.
Thank you,
Sure,
Sharon.
that would
Appreciate
be
it. You just squeaked in. It was a terrible fought battle. The other thing I could have done is just handed the files over to for the rest of the meetings. Well, you could have. They would have went all the way around the table back page. Anyway, moving on to now item number 4, approval of agenda. Brian? Sure. Seconder, Ian, thank you. Sure. All in favor? Carry. Declaration of conflict of interest arising out of the minutes and matters listed on the agenda. Hearing none. Under presentations, deputations, AM and PM is supposed to have the deputation 10, but thank you. Running late, they can't find a parking spot. All right, we'll move on to item number 7 and come back to 6 when we show up. Confirmation of the minutes of the public session held December 20th, 2023. Move. Thanks, Brian. Thank you. All in favor? Carried. Business arising out of the public session minutes of December 20th, 2023. Hearing none. Correspondence received. We received the Crime Stoppers Winter 2024 Tipster magazine and also their coordinator's report from October to December of 2023. Under chairman's report, I don't have anything to report at this point in time. Under governance, as in the past, usually the first board meeting of the year, I send out the code of conduct for everyone to review, so they've got it in files. This is the new code of conduct that was published on January 6, 2024, and specifically relates to the new CSPA that's coming out in April. Dwayne, do you have anything to add under the open session for governance?
No, I don't think so this time, board chair.
Okay, thank you. Moving on to item number 12, reports from Inspector Bishop. Yeah, I think that's coming up.
Sorry, CIB.
Last second.
Yep.
Email.
Okay, so our CIB report, it's looked very similar for 6 months now. We are continuing with our 3 homicide investigations. A couple of them are getting closer to at least the end of the investigative stage. They'll resurface as court comes up for many of them, but we are starting to see the light at the end of the tunnel. You'll see when I get to the core report that we've had very little report on court for about the same amount of time because they've been fully dedicated to the homicide, where we're just now coming out of that with core at least and getting some proactive core response back up and running, including a new officer coming into core actually tomorrow. So start date for Constable Angela Reed. So with respect to our CIB unit, the occasion 3 homicides. We had an investigation of assault 2-month-old child that came to us through Bruce Gray Family Child Abandonment Services. That is ongoing with interviews and medical records related to an injury to the young child. And we had an interesting call on Boxing Day with a male that had fallen right into the window on downtown Port. It required some investigation on that date as well. It's determined to be self-inflicted. Actually, that was not a fatality either. He survived some treatment. The remainder of the report speaks to referrals numbers, MR cases, training that was received during the month of December. There was one little error I'll point out just on the drug overdose information. The error was that we had reported 2, I believe, on the November report, where 1 had actually been a couple of days into December. So one that's reported on here had been previously reported in November. We had also said in November we had 11 deaths through the year. The 11 is the correct total, but the 1 actually fell into the month of December. So that's where we've ended the year in terms of our drug poisoning deaths, or what we suspect to be drug poisoning deaths, is 11. I always throw the caveat out there that that doesn't necessarily mean that was all there were. Those are the ones that come to the attention of police. For example, if somebody that was staying with you overdosed and you threw them into your car, dropped them off at the hospital, and they died 6 or 8 hours later, we'd like you to find out about it just due to the way the system works. So we only really recorded the ones that we've directly been involved with, that we've gone to, and again, they're the ones that we suspect based on what we see at the scene there. So take that number with a bit of a grain of salt. It's likely higher in terms of the actual impact to the city, and it's just, we sort of keep track of that just as a way of kind of measuring. So we had a big year in 2021, which really was COVID year 14, dropped a little bit. In 2022 with dropped down to 6, we thought we're on a good trend, and we're back up to 11. Yeah, that's the CIB report. So big report for the auxiliary report, always in December. We run. Okay. We run our Salvation Army auxiliary food drive. That's always been a big event. You'll remember years past, that was Dave Barber's sort of bailiwick that he loved doing, and he's passed the torch on to Special Constable Hannah Morton. She's the second from the left and floor down below, and they're very happy to report the results. Based on $5,832 received and 1,809 pounds of food. I'm particularly impressed by that, given the current economic climate. So that's the largest they've had so far. We keep getting a little bit bigger every year, but I really thought in advance of that, with the price of groceries and everything else, that we probably have a tough year. So we were very happy to see that we had a banner year in terms of what we were able to get back to food banks. So congrats to Hannah and the rest of the auxiliary team. for their job and doing that. December's always a big month because we have a lot of stuff going on, with parade and Festival of Northern Lights. So 232 hours of donated volunteer time. That's the largest month volunteer hours in 2023. And just in terms of our staff development, we've done a few little changes, and there's just a notification there. So Josh Kearney, the medical, I wasn't in attendance. It's one of our new promotions. Josh actually started out his career in the auxiliary, so Josh is taking over control on the uniform side of the auxiliary as the new auxiliary sergeant from Sergeant Liz Granny. So she's done it for 3 or 4 years now, and it's moving on to Josh as of the start of the year. So we're looking forward to the year of the auxiliary. I hate to use the term not much to see here, but that's the one I explained earlier. Our officer has been basically reviewing video and doing homicide follow-ups for pretty much since July when that came in. So that will be changing. I hope that is the last one you see with 0 hours starting now. And tomorrow we'll have Constable Nathan Curry and Constable Angela Reed assigned into Corps, and we'll get back to our more proactive approach, increasing our foot patrol numbers and that sort of things.
Question?
Yeah, Inspector Bishop, going back to those 3 homicides. OPP are still leading the investigation?
Technically, yes. So the way we operate is the OPP assign a major case manager, which in these cases has been an inspector that will be tasked with that, and then we receive some shared resources that will come from the OPP. But that is their model in terms of.
Okay. Can you answer off the top of your head approximately how many officers are involved in those investigations?
All 3 of them?
Yeah.
My goodness, I would want to make a guess at that.
Okay.
There were a lot of officers.
A lot,
investigation.
yeah. We continue.
Particularly in the first few months, they were all heavily front loaded. We actually had some officers working both cases because people have to priorities, that sort of thing, but we did have quite a few OPP officers, quite a few of our own.
Okay, good.
And we still have quite a few people working on
Okay, good. Thank you.
Yeah, I remember being up here and seeing the parking lot across the street and the parking lot. I'm wondering where all our cars came from. I realized they were OPP cars, not ours.
Yeah, good. Yeah, the interesting part with the OPP major case, the OPP are very busy as well. So the OPP case managers, in many cases, are carrying multiple homicides, so not only managing this one, so they're 6 or 7 or 8 across the province, and they're really seeing pinch as well, such that talking to one of them, it's okay, you're coming to a meeting for this once you got to return. Is that from that one or the other one? And even some of the OPP officers that we were getting coming from Eastern Ontario and places like that, just to draw on people to get them here. And some of them would end up getting shuffled off to another active case that just came in yesterday and might come back a week later. So it's not an easy question to answer without having to sit with chessboard.
And of those roles, they supply the major case manager, so there's the command triangle in the major case management model, so we supply the lead investigator and the file manager and maintain control of that, and then as well, we've supplied the applicants or the majority of the applicants with the paper rate.
Good. Thank you.
Moving on to reports from Inspector Clinty.
Thank you. So starting off with frontline patrol and collisions. So for charges laid by our frontline patrol and part-time officers, we had 120 HCA charges, 13 compliances, 53 cautions, 6 liquor license charges, 123 criminal code charges, 89 POA charges, and bylaw. Most of those are associated with the winter carnival bylaw, and 104 hours of foot patrol. For ride programs, we had 22 on duty and 3 grant funded ride checks during the month of December, with 2,180 drivers checked. And that was approximately 24 hours of ride. There was 40 OSPSB charges and warnings issued, and there was 4 impaired driving charges during the month. For collisions, was down over the same time last year. We had 30 during December, whereas back in 2022, we had 44. 21 of them on the east side, 5 on the west, 4 in parking lots, 2 failed to remain collisions. 10 of them were handled by our collision reporting center, and 20 by our officers on the road. That concludes frontline patrol. Moving on to community services. Jason had several meetings going on during the month with the law enforcement agencies and partners to protect seniors, preparing for the polar plunge events, school board and police services meeting, working on our internal website. He's part of that committee. He's at the Alpha Street Resource Center, and also meeting on the Youth and Policing Initiative, which our service is very active in. And several presentations, instructing on bus patrol training at Notre Dame School, at East Ridge with the grade 7s and 8s, Youth and the Law presentation, Silver Seas on frauds and scams, with community living on community safety, the Beth Ezekiel Synagogue, meeting with the folks over there, learning more about the Jewish community here in Sound. And some of the events, he was at Bayfield Landing for their first ever Santa Claus parade. They had a little parade up there, and you'll see some of the pictures in the report. He went to the screening of Love in the Time of Fentanyl, and he was at Alexander School for their Christmas dinner. That's it for our community services. Moving on to lost hours in training, we had 10 members report sick or injured during December, with a total of 288 hours. For WSIB, we had 3 members for a total of 380 hours. Training during the month, we had 1 member on the CPIC narrative course, 1 member on the domestic violence investigation course. We had 1 member who was asked to assist at the Ontario Police College with revamping the Power Case for Investigations course. And Power Case is used on major cases such as homicides and sexual assaults for managing the information in those cases. And we had 4 members attend the Applied Suicide Intervention Training course hosted by CMHA here. That concludes my reports.
Thank you, Secretary. Reports from board bylaws. Who's, Okay.
Sorry. These reports, we really are just there for information for the most part. Our taxi and adult entertainment licenses are always just an in and out, but other numbers really don't mean anything. Sometimes they're renewals, and there's really nothing to see there other than the regular numbers that we process on a monthly basis. So in terms of our court management, what we look at here mostly is our special constable hours, 1,155 hours. That number fluctuates based on bans and needs of the courts. Sometimes, as the chief explained in our last meeting, we get matters transferred in from other courts that are under our control. That number is relatively consistent with most months. The past years just because. And we also, out of our records branch, report on our criminal record searches, which remained consistent for a number of years at 1 to 2 weeks. We're getting back, which is actually really good comparison to other services. And we ran 6,501 bulk searches completed in December of 2023. So we report on those as the third-party records checks are the revenue source.
But just before we move on to that, the Director of Civilian Services, the board reports, we're going to be changing it up a little bit. And Mark's working with Chris, the new Director of Civilian Services, and we're going to look at changing the report similar to what we did with the SECC, providing a little bit more information, context, and those type of things. Historically, I think there was, because of the fact bylaw came over from the city, that it was probably important to keep track of those things. I don't know if there's as much of a relevance in that now as there was at the time, and then we're just reporting as we've always reported. I'm not sure the benefit of that, so we're going to do a sit down and go over and see what information is, but it's more relevant to an oversight body like yourselves.
Report from Director of Corporate Services.
I can do that. So, communication center report, this report is quite comprehensive. There's a lot of really good information in here because it's basically our year-end report and it has a lot of year-end statistics in it. So I'll go through it as quick as I can, but there's a lot of really pertinent data in here. So recognizing the importance of improving the service delivery in the communication center, a satisfaction survey was sent out to our police and fire partners in December 2023. 16 fire agencies responded and 3 of the 5 police agencies. They were asked to rate their overall satisfaction with 1, call taking and dispatching, and 2, IT services and support, and 3, record services, and were given their opportunity to also share comments. They were also asked to rate the overall quality of the communication center services and support with additional open-ended questions for feedback. The general satisfaction was high or very high, with patterns emerging unique to police and fire partners. With the feedback shared, there was praise and appreciation for the service. Comments identifying areas of improvement, included follow-up training with dispatchers regarding gathering tombstone data, with some inconsistencies, a need for improved understanding of fire-specific requirements. Also the comments of not enough dispatchers to meet the demands, and an improved response to requests and emails, and also information technology tickets for service. There's also identified prioritized areas for improvements. Regular meetings with the communication center partners will continue in 2024. As well as a newsletter to maintain and improve ongoing communications. As far as human resources go, in December, there were 4 part-time communicators hired, bringing the vacancy rate for communicators down to 3. There were no staff departures during the month. The 5 new communicators hired in October are now through their 10-week training program with their mentors. The actual 14 part-time people in the center in December, as shown on the table further on the report, are not all fully operational, as it includes these 5 trainees and the 4 new hires who will begin training February 5th. As far as calls into the communication center for 911 calls, there was 5,177 emergency calls from the 911 phone line into the center in December, representing an average of 167 calls per day. This was a 2.6% decline in daily volume from November, and there's also a 19% decline in volume compared to December of 2022. There was a slight pattern of slight decreases from the previous month and more significant decreases from December 22. This was consistent for the volume of no answer and answered 911 calls, as well as 911 calls dispatched by the center in December of 2023. Year-to-date numbers, 76,904 calls on 911 into the center in 2023 is a 9% increase in volume from 2022. Almost 6,500 more 911 calls compared to the previous year. The average daily increase in 911 calls went from 193 in 2022 and rose by an average of 18 more per day to 211 in 2023. Overall, in 2023, the volume of no answer 911 calls rose by 19%. This was most noticeable from April to August, which experienced significant increases. During the last 3 months of the year, however, the volume of no answer calls has been declining. And the volume of 911 calls answered and transferred to a secondary PSAP, so to another dispatch center, rose by 4.5% compared to 2022, and approximately 45,000 in 2022 to 47,000 in 2023. CAD events for the month. Calls that are dispatched through CAD come through a variety of sources, such as the non-emergency phone line, walk-ins to the various stations, officer generated, as well as the 911 phone line. There were a total of 4,600 calls dispatched through CAD by the center in December, or an average of 148 calls per day. This represents an 8% decrease from the previous month and a 9% decrease from the December of 2022. Decrease in volume from November was reported for both police and fire agencies dispatched. However, dispatch for Grey County Transport more than tripled. Changes in dispatching of calls for service are anticipated and often corresponds to seasonal changes, such as weather, daylight, and tourism. And onto the next page, you can see the dispatch calls from the center year to date. It's 64,397. The bulk of those are dispatched for the Owen Sound Police, Coburg Police, and Soggy Shores Police. And then there's a further breakdown to the other agencies listed there. There's also a graph representing time of day for when we're having the most calls come in. So you see that increase at 8 o'clock in the morning, and it goes through until 5 p.m. We're seeing the bulk of the calls. We've also listed most frequent calls to the center. Number one is traffic enforcement, police assistance, 911 calls, community services, suspicious persons, person's welfare check are in the top 6 calls dispatched. As far as call priority goes, we didn't see a whole lot of change between the previous year as far as the number of calls for priority. They're all listed there with priority 0 being most serious, going up to priority 4, and then we have priority 9 calls, which are generated after the fact. We also have a graph representing our response time. So for the most serious calls, the priority 0, 1, and 2. They are median response time, so average is just over 8 minutes. The time spent on those more serious calls was just under 30 minutes, where if it was a priority 0 call, which is the most serious, the median is approximately 50 minutes on those calls. Then we have graphs in here representing the current state of our human resources in the center, as well as the calls coming into the center. So a very good report there with lots of information.
Thank you, Inspector. Moving on to item 15, report from Director of Information Technology. Yes.
Some of the restructuring also is going to put the IT portion into the OSPSB report moving forward as a part of that. But we completed an upgrade to the links to City Hall for the purpose of accessing the financial payroll systems as well. Attended the Optic annual general meeting for 2 days, including travel to and from Toronto, and attended that as well. Senior leadership conference here. Worked with the camera city regarding possible camera solution in the downtown area, and discussions are ongoing. And as well, one significant event was the whole department completing successfully passed with excellent results an external security audit of the Digital Boundaries Group. It's basically an ethical hacking system, so if they try and hack into your system and see where you have vulnerabilities. So that was good to see that we didn't identify any vulnerabilities. That's the Director of IT's report.
Moving to financial reports.
Yeah, so the financial report, we're still working on closing off 2023. So we've got some holidays for our financial director. So the significant items though for the board, and they've been included in the package, is the 2024 draft budget that was approved by the council by the board and went to city for approval. At 8.68 million dollars. That was a 6.93% increase since that time. Working with the city and the financial Allen over at the city. There was a contingency reflect some officer absences that brought the budget increase down to 5.95%. As a result of some departures and the fact we won't be filling them right away. So that lowered our ask to 5.95%. And then there was we received the information from the provincial government on the court security transfer, and that actually increased by $63,300, which would bring it down to 5.18% of an increase, but it's actually 5.2. It was rounded off to 390,000 for budget purposes. So significant decrease, 6.9 to 5.2% as an overall increase. And that, as you will recall, it added some additional coverage starting later in the year.
Any questions for the chief on that? Moving on to item 18, operating reports from chief of police.
Yeah, so just some, I'll just highlight a couple of them. The Optic AGM in Toronto, they attended. You can read the rest of them. There's still pretty much one significant thing is HR interviews, and this swearing in the March past for our two new officers was some of the highlights of the month. So I was taking some time off for the holidays.
Moving on to new business. At the December meeting, we talked about some updates to the fees for the tax license, and also we looked at changing the name of the taxi bylaw to the transportation bylaw, and it's here for first and second reading. There are a couple of things that I should, bring attention to, especially Ian, you weren't here at the beginning of the meeting. Regarding the bylaw, which, as I said, we changed it to the, transportation bylaw. And in section 1.1, we've changed it well to be known as the Owen Sound Private Transportation Bylaw. Section 4.1, there was an area there in item A, required that a driver be able to read, write, and speak the English language. That's now been changed to be able to communicate with passengers. It's bringing it more current. Also, they talked about in 4.2 regarding the operation of the taxi, and in item A, it said should to any point not more than 5 kilometers beyond the limits of the city of Owen Sound. And we've changed that to any point beyond the limits of the city of Owen Sound, because I'm suggesting that most of the drivers are out of compliance with that requirement today. So just to bring it up to you. Also, it's talked about in item 4.2B, it said as long as any part of the taxi business, including carrying, is carried on within the city of Owen Sound. Any part would have to be exclusively could only operate within Owen Sound. And we've changed item B to read so long as part of the taxi business, including carrying of goods for passengers, is carried on within the city of Owen Sound. Also, it talked about a city bike requiring a business license from the city of Owen Sound. What we've done in talking with the city, they're looking at making some changes, but we're not sure how long that might take. So in order to cover that off, we said an approved business license issued by the city of Owen Sound, if such a business license is required by the city. That means we don't have to go back and change the bylaw. And also there was a schedule A of the license fees that were changed and updated. And at that point, I'd like to call for a motion. I think you have.
Yeah, I can move that with those changes. I think that are quite appropriate in updating it. So moved by myself and seconded by Member O'Leary, that leave be granted to introduce bylaw number 2024-01, bylaw to license, regulate, and govern brokers, a bylaw to license, regulate, and govern brokers, owners, drivers of taxi cabs and other vehicles regularly used for hire for the conveyance of passengers in and about the city of Owen Sound, commonly referred to as the transportation bylaw. And that the same be hereby deemed to have been read a first and a second time.
All in favor? Thank you. Moving on to the next item, the admin fee bylaws, there's an update there. Basically, we're just updating the fees, there was no real changes to the text. The only thing I would note that there was one change under paid duty for a late notice fee request. It shows here it was 100, it should actually be 120. That's a typo on my. So if I could have a motion for those changes.
Thank you, Mr. Chair. Moved by myself, second by member Capresia, that leave be granted to introduce bylaw number 2024-03. Bylaw to establish administrative fees for services provided by the Owen Sound Police Service, and the same be hereby deemed to have been read the first and second time.
Thank you. All in favor? Thank you. Looking at the next item, false alarm bylaw update. The only thing we changed on this one is we added the following to it under item 2 fines as B. Any owner who cancels an alarm call after an officer has been dispatched to the scene is liable for a fine of $25 per call. I can have a motion to make that change.
Moved by myself and seconded by member O'Leary, that leave be granted to introduce bylaw number 2024-02, a bylaw to control the incident of false alarms within the city of Owen Sound, and the same be hereby deemed to have been read a first and a second time.
Thank you. All in favor? All right, moving on.
Which is here.
Oh, Rich is here. Good place to stop. Thank you. Are they coming in or?
I think we're
We're
going in.
doing kind of both, we'll pass them and do the photographs.
Oh, okay.
Yes.
Tim, Dwayne, we're just gonna take a 5-10 minute break for just 1 second. We have to do some photographs here as well.
In a tree break. Last pin. Wayne's back.
I have a copy. Thanks, folks.
Good stuff. All right. Back to agenda, item 19, immediate crime stoppers donation. Back in March of 2023, Peter Reed had made a presentation to regarding contributions of $2,500 over a period of 2 years, 23 and 24. We had approved the donation subject to a list of contributors in the amount for 2023 in order to be considered for the 2,500 in 2024. Speaking with Peter, he did provide that information to us, and also the email from him was in your board package as well. So being that we were probably the second highest number of tips provided to the Owen Sound Police Service, I'm suggesting that we continue on and do the $2,500 for 2024. I give a motion for that. Brian, thank you. Thank you. All in favor? Very, thank you. Regarding the towing and storage policy, the as you know, the Towing and Storage Safety Act and Enforcement Act 2021 removes the licensing power of the municipality for towing sector to ensure that operators and drivers in the towing vehicle storage industry are not required to pay or follow municipal licensing regimes when the provincial certification program is in effect. Its municipal oversight ended on January 1st, 2024. There has been an appeal made to that act, but that won't change what we're going to be doing today. And so sort of the next steps, first of all, we have to rescind the current bylaw, number 2014-03, respecting the effective management of towing and storage services within the city of Owen Sound. And if I could have a motion to rescind that bylaw, and we'll be replacing it in the next step with a policy to cover that off. Okay, thank you. Seconder, fine, thank you. All in favor? Okay. And then I need a motion to accept and approve the new policy, which is OSPSB General Policy 011, towing, release, and storage of vehicles. Cindy, thank you. Seconder, fine. All in favor? Thank you. Moving on to website update. Here.
I can help. So we continue to work with the new provider through the city to update our website as a sub-site for the city's website. And it is on schedule to proceed and move forward in March. We're migrating things over now from our current site and creating all new content for the majority of it. But there are some things that we're migrating over as well. And the board will have a position, the location and items posted on that site as well.
I provided all of what we want to migrate over to Mark to
Right.
send
Saw
in.
that,
Yeah.
Good. All right, moving on to annual reports.
Yeah, so I am going to turn it over to those who are responsible, state gives them the credit for it. So, Jeff, you want to go start with firearms?
Sure. So the service took possession of 16 firearms last year. Of those, 6 were rifles, 5 were shotguns, and 5 were handguns. Of the 16 firearms, 11 were surrendered for destruction by owners or family members, and 5 are being held for criminal matters. The service currently has 80 firearms in their possession, consisting of 32 rifles, 31 shotguns, and 17 handguns. 1 handgun from a 2023 matter was turned over to another agency for a criminal investigation. 2 firearms from 2020 were returned to a third party after appropriate firearms transfers were completed. And a date will be set for firearms destruction in early spring. And all required reports have been submitted to the Provincial Weapons Enforcement Unit and the RCMP. That's it for firearms.
Okay, so I'm gonna cover off missing persons. So this is a new report that you won't have seen in previous years. Just a discussion with the chief when, in light of a lot of the narrative that's going around with respect to missing persons, some of it generated against murdered Indigenous women and girls. Report, we thought it would be interesting and handy to report this to the board in terms of what we do here with missing persons and what sort of the status of our missing persons investigations look like. So before I do that, I just want to comment on a couple of things that we have on the go here. And this is new in the last couple of years, but we have two individuals, two officers within our service that are trained as what's called comprehensive ground search managers. So a comprehensive ground search, for example, if you remember a couple of years ago, we had the young lad that went missing in Harrison Park, later found the cave, spent the night in the cave. That was a comprehensive ground search. So that's pull out all the stops. We had the OPP helicopter here. We had the OPP here assisting. And sort of the process for that is it's actually very technical. There's specific software that we use that's coupled with handheld GPS devices. So the search manager is the coordinator of ensuring that all the places are covered, where everybody goes, everybody carries a GPS with them. All that feeds into the software, and it's almost like a command center that happens where overlaid over ortho imagery, we can actually look and see where everybody's been, where they've checked, and it allows us to do a comprehensive ground search, basically. Some of the benefits of that are we don't miss places, but also some of the benefits when you're dealing with a distraught family is to be able to call them in, as we did down in Harrison Park, to say, and the family in Harrison Park was actually overwhelmed because when you see this on the board, you see the volume of everything from where the helicopters travel to every individual officer. It becomes this big mountain of holy cow. And sometimes when we get to, a missing person that we don't find, it's actually very helpful to be able to go to the family and go, what we can tell you is they're not here. This is what we've done here. We're still looking, but it really just allows us to be able to do that. A lot of smaller services don't do this. We have the capability here to do it ourselves, even though back several years ago we called the OPP. We may still use them if we need extra resources, but we can manage all that ourselves here with our own staff, potentially bring in auxiliaries if we need extra people. But anyway, so that's an upgrade that we've done in the last couple of years. One other thing that we've done that started a couple of years ago and is just now getting restarted is we partnered with Victim Services Grey Bruce to do a local roll-up of Project Lifesavers. So what that is, Victim Services manages a program where they're able to put bracelets on vulnerable persons that have a radio frequency identifier on it. We have this device downstairs, almost looks like a big TV antenna on a handle kind of thing that's almost like in the old days when you saw them tracking the lions across the savannah sort of thing, the radio collars. It's the same technology, and it allows us to, when the person's reported missing, we're able to look them up, find the radio ID for their bracelet, and be able to actually go out and triangulate and locate directions and that sort of thing. So it's a great idea. It didn't get a great start just because of some changes down in Victim Services, but it's back in place and they're getting it rolled out. So ideally, we'd love to see any vulnerable people, wandering persons, nursing home with those things on, because it can reduce the amount of time that we would spend on it and actually make it much safer. Particularly in winter months, if you have somebody more wanders off, time's critical. So anyway, 2023, we investigated 103 missing persons occurrences. I've just broken that down for you just a little bit for some demographics and what that looked like as far as ages. They ranged anywhere from 2 years old to 99 years of age, so it's across the spectrum. Majority of cases are solved quickly within hours. However, several cases were lengthy, with the longest time period being reported missing and being located being 68 days. The caveat I will say there is, although at least some of these are classified as missing persons, they really would be cases where the person wouldn't consider themselves missing. They probably left and maybe didn't tell everybody where they were going, or for different reasons, depending on what's going on in their life. So we do follow up on them, and I'm happy to say, out of that, and just of sort of context of that 103, 15 individuals are multiple missing, typically teenagers. So one of them was the high of 7 reported missing events out of the year. That was their most frequent, and so those 15 individuals represent 38 of those 103 occurrences. And the good news story at the end of it, at the end of the year, all 103 have been located. There are no outstanding persons reports from 2023, so that's good news. Some point in the future, I will report back to you as well, because what we've done, or I've got records just doing a review to look historically to see if we do have any that are still sitting out there. I know she's located one from 1983 that we have to do a little bit of follow-up, so literally 40 years old, to determine whether that one's ever closed at some point or missed. But we're going back just to make sure that we haven't missed anything and that everything's closed off as it should be. So anyway, it's just more for information. This is a requirement of PSA for annual report. We thought, given the attention of these types of cases generated, it would be good for the board.
Dave, those bracelets are, the old age homes, they all know about that. They don't
Yeah.
ordered it all, or
It is, the challenge for it is there is a cost associated. Part of that cost is not through us. We're simply the holder of the equipment. Project Lifesavers administered by services, but there's I believe there's an upfront cost of several $100s for the equipment, and then I would have to check, it could be as high as $100 a year, and that covers battery changes and things like that as well. So potentially there's a barrier there related to money. I would love to see a grant or something come up that we could write to that would allow for a certain.
well, I just mean, like, if I had a parent in one of those homes that had dementia, like, I'd buy that, I'd make sure I had that.
Okay.
So that's available if.
Yep.
Oh, okay.
Yeah, there's been a media released on it. It is out there. Alzheimer's Society is also in the loop on this, so I don't think it's a lack of knowledge. It's just a lack of it's starting again. We do have some clients that are on it now, but we would love to see it be more widespread and more readily available to anybody that needs it.
Thanks.
Little wee thing I got for my luggage. I don't know how much it costs. Got it for Christmas, and I can track my luggage or wherever it is in my telephone, if it's in my wife's pocket or parents' pocket. It's really easy to track. I'll know exactly where they're.
Even if your luggage is still in Portugal.
If your luggage is still in Portugal, and show that it's still in Portugal.
Oh,
Well, yeah, it's wild.
that's cool.
One is public complaints, so carry on with that one. This is one that we do report on annually to you. They're governed under the Police Services Act. The report basically indicates how the oversight system works with respect to the Office of the Independent Police Review Director. They've been up and running since at least 2008, I believe. I've been dealing with them ever since they came into being and replaced the old police complaints process at the time. So when they do receive a complaint, so this is the provincial body that operates out of Toronto, they have an option to either conduct an investigation or screen the complaint out as being not in the public interest to proceed, or direct the investigation be conducted by the police service of a responding officer. Or they can also, if there's conflict, have another police service investigate. So in 2023, we received a total of 16 complaints, or sorry, the OIPRD received a total of 16 complaints initially for their organization. This compares to 11 that were received in 2022, but I will explain there's a bit of an anomaly this year. 14 of the complaints were in relation to officer conduct, with one additional complaint split into 2 separate complaints, one being conduct and one being services provided by a service. However, both originated from the same set of circumstances. So one of our complainants last year filed 5 separate individual complaints. So I think kind of if you look at that, we're fairly consistent with where we were last year. Even it looks like an increase. It's a simple complainant filing multiple times with the OIPRD. Single service complaint that we received was recently reviewed and remains under investigation. The conduct component of the complaint's been deemed by the OIPRD not be in the public interest to investigate. Of the 15 officer conduct complaints that were received, 11 were screened out. For deemed to be not in public interest to investigate, be for a lot of different reasons, but anyway, that's the OIPRD's decision. Just because somebody complains doesn't mean it warrants an investigation. Some of them are spurious and that sort of thing, so they do leave quite a number out. Further, one was screened out by the OIPRD because the complainant failed to provide them with enough information to proceed. So they'll often send out letters with further information. If they don't receive an answer, eventually they'll close it. One was resolved informally between the complainant and subject officer, and another was withdrawn with the complainant prior to the OIPRD making a screening decision. And we have one that we just recently received in the last couple of weeks. It's we're still looking at. And just the last piece as it relates to complaints, Chief received a request from Hanover Police Service last year for some assistance with an officer that they had working for Hanover with an allegation that involved both criminal and Police Service Act allegations. So we completed a lengthy investigation. So Sergeant Ron from our CID branch did the criminal sides, charges were laid, and I actually did the investigation for the Police Service Act disciplinary stuff. So both charges are being laid. Spent a lot of time working on that, and I think we just got notification now that there will be a hearing in March. It's probably going to go for a week, so Sergeant Ron and I will be tied up for that as well. So that's your complaints report.
Thank you.
Moving on to
Secondary.
so
This is a mandated Police Service Act required report, so Police Service Act indicates that any person that's going to look for secondary employment in addition to their police employment basically needs to seek permission from the chief, and that's there to ensure that there's no conflict of interest that may arise from the duties as a police officer or a member of the service. So we report to you every year on what that looks like. 2023, several requests for secondary employment that were approved by the chief. We had a dispatcher granted permission to work as a crisis relief worker at one of our local women's facilities. One of our special constables who works at the courts was given permission to work also as a security guard at the casino, and as well as to operate a landscaping business. One special constable granted permission to work as a security guard at a Grey County hospital. Finally, one constable was granted permission to work with a company that offers patient transfer services. And what we also add, there are members of the service that do sit on different boards and committees by virtue of their employment with us. They don't apply to this policy, and other members continue with secondary employment that we would have reported in previous years that just has continued. So it's your secondary employment report.
With your permission, we're going to defer the use of force report to the next meeting and bring you some additional data from the use of force reports on race-based data that's been collected on the new use of force reports. So on to the police facility and health and safety issues. This is always a lengthy report. As you previously heard, work is set to begin on the new communications center during the week of February 18th. It is expected to be completed by the end of May. As far as facilities work, overall, the service level by the facility staff has been very good during 2023, and the majority of the issues were attended to in a timely manner. As far as police facility assessment, a facility audit occurred on October 31st, 2022. We went through the entire facility with the consultant, and we were waiting on a report, and this report never came. The contract was terminated due to the slow progression of the finished assessment. City hired another company to do an audit of the facility, which was done in April. And that was extremely thorough. A comprehensive assessment report was supplied in June. It identified a number of issues with the aging building and provided information on what should be prioritized and forecast costs. The report listed far more in terms of replacement and upgrade than has been budgeted in the coming years, and the report also prioritized several items and issues that need to be addressed immediately. The report was provided to the board at the July 5th meeting. Roof repairs work started in March of 2023 to clad the rooftop mechanical building, which had been identified as a source of leaks into the back of the building. Additional roofing work repair was done during December of 2023 and into January. While this work was occurring, the flashing had been removed and rain was forecasted. As a result, this work took longer than what we were told it was going to take. And we dealt with additional leaks into the front stairwell, which we hope have been rectified with the completion of the roofing repair. And I believe they're still finishing up that repair work. As far as parking goes, the service has outgrown its available parking for service vehicles and staff members. The lot also serves as a parking and service area for the collision reporting center and provides regular and accessible parking stalls for the public. We have been getting 3 additional parking passes for staff during the winter months when the lot would lose 2 to 6 parking stalls due to snow accumulation. It was found that due to the number of staff, the additional parking passes were actually needed year round. In the summer of 2023, we had 3 homicides, which we had a lot of staff here from both our service through the daytime and the OPP. There wasn't adequate parking, and we had to get even more parking passes from the city to park over on First Avenue West. It's a daily occurrence now that 5 to 10 employees are required to park off site.
So if I could, when I read that, my first thought is like, what are we doing spending shy of $1 million on building? We don't even have parking spaces. I think that's a big deal. Like, is there anything down the road or any other options that we can? Like, this place isn't, it's not gonna get smaller. We're gonna need parking spaces. I don't know what the answer is, like, you know, I was thinking maybe, I don't know if you can access property behind, but.
I know there was a bunch of discussions long before my time about buying the building next to us and turning it into a parking lot, and that sort of fell by the wayside. And you'd probably be spending $1 million to purchase that land today. Short of building a new police station, which Eccles will be able to tell us more about in a couple of years. I'm not
Yeah.
sure.
Yeah, the options are fairly limited. We've just been using the parking along First Avenue West in the 900 block. And then once the construction gets going on the dispatch renovation, we're looking at another option with a lot nearby that currently isn't being used because there's a renovation going on at that building. So we'll be able to secure about, what is it, Dave, 10 spots? Yeah. Guess we won't have any parking for the police vehicles at the back of the station, so we'll have to move that out to the side behind the McKay property and then have a staff park at the other lot. Fire suppression. In September 2020, it was identified that the current fire suppression system should be changed on the main floor and the upstairs server rooms, because it was a water-based system and would cause more damage if it was activated rather than prevented. That fire suppression work was completed in, they started in January 2023 and concluded it in March. So that's completed now. The access floor in dispatch and records. So this is an elevated floor that in the past had various electrical services, et cetera, underneath it. It's become a problem and it's deteriorated over the years. In 2021, we had a chair leg go through a hole in the tiles. We've held off on it because of the new communications center that's coming. And so we'll look at what we're going to do with that floor in the future when we decide on what that room is going to be used for, but the flooring will need to be replaced. The brickwork, this has been going on for some time, basically since 2019. We've noticed the deterioration of the brickwork on the building. It's been put off year over year. It was looked at to be as a solution to have the building clad in steel siding. And so that was also identified in the building audit. And we have no date for this to be repaired as of yet. Heating and cooling, this continues to be an ongoing issue. It's pretty much daily that somebody in the building is either freezing or too hot in their offices, and which usually requires a visit from the heating and cooling contractor. It's caused further problems when it got really hot outside, and a lot of the pipes in the ceiling, just above the ceiling tiles, started to sweat, which appeared to be, looked like leaks to us, but it was actually sweating pipes. So we had some damaged ceiling tiles happen. They got replaced, and then in August, September, that was in 2022, and then in August, September 2023, when it got really hot again, same thing happened again. Ceiling tiles were damaged. We had to have the HVAC contractor back again, and those ceiling tiles once again have to be replaced. The electric transformer unit at the rear of the building that's in a state of disrepair with holes in it, etc., still hasn't been replaced. It's just been obscured by a piece of plywood. This is the responsibility of Ontario Hydro or Hydro One, and they have not given us a date when it's going to be placed. Doors and windows continue to be a problem. These are the original windows in the building, and the air just basically travels in and out of them. It's a huge heating and cooling loss issue. You can actually see the outside through the cracked moldings of the windows in some offices. During the building audit, the contractor located the date of manufacture of those windows, which was 1969. The front entrance doorways have been identified as a significantly deficient in the most recent building assessment. And there's significant gaps in the doors, and basically the heat's just going right out through the doors. And so there's steps needed to take to replace those, but there's also the aorta component that they'll need to be compliant when they're replaced. And as I said before, staff continue to deal with cold, drafty offices during the winter months. The elevator, no work has been done on it. It's been identified as an issue for a number of years. And basically staff have just avoided using it because it's too unpredictable as to when it will work properly or if somebody's gonna get stuck inside of it. Some good news, we have the McKnight family who does their janitorial work here at the station. All of that work has been very good with no complaints. That's the building.
Great building.
Any questions of Jeff? Any more year-end reports?
Yep, there's still some more. We've been busy.
Yeah.
So Joint Forces Operations, we've every year been reporting to you on essentially what would amount to the cooperation that we do almost on a daily basis here between our other municipal partners and the OPP. Typically, a joint force operation is a much larger operation that gets into legal agreements and everything else between the services in terms of who owns lawsuits and that sort of thing. We don't, as a rule, get involved in those, but we do cooperate very frequently with a lot of our community partners. So this is just a summary, just to give you some idea of the highlights were for the year. We maintain a technical component out of our criminal investigations branch that does allow us to do some cell phone work for our own service. And we also assist some of our partners in doing them where we can. That's kind of a whole different discussion in terms of keeping up with technology. But so just for example, last year we did sell 5 extractions for Southern Shores, 2 for Hanover, and we also assisted the OPP one. So it's not overly taxing, but that is something that we do offer as a shared service here. We assisted Collingwood OPP with a sexual assault that occurred in our area, which reported in their area. Resulted in a 61-year-old man being charged with sexual assault by us. Controlled Drugs and Substances Act search warrant, a West Side residence, joint investigation of the OPP, which included 1 warrant being done here and another in Bruce County. 5 people arrested and charged with various drug offenses. Child exploitation investigators, we assisted with a residential search warrant, sort of COPP. Then the city of Owen Sound, numerous devices seized for digital forensic analysis that concluded with the OPP laying charges. 1700 block of 9th Avenue East back in April. Again, obtained a search warrant, respect to a break and enter, which occurred the day before at a restaurant located on Highway 610, just south of Owen Sound. Safe had been stolen. On execution of the warrant, police recovered stolen property from other break enters and thefts. Charged 35-year-old male, 31-year-old female with all string of offenses related to those break and enters. Those assistance with the OPP as well. Our core unit and our uniform branch assisted in investigating 3 homicides. As we've spoken about before, the investigative teams encompass the Ontario Provincial Police. We also had some short-term assistance from some of our municipal partners as well. July 7th was the start of our first homicide investigation for a 7-year-old male. We have charges against 2 individuals in relation to that. So the work still continues on that as we prepare for court. Both remain in custody, investigations ongoing. Following that, just several days later, 17-year-old male in an apartment building in Sound. We have 3 individuals charged now in relation to that homicide. And again, that is also still on disclosure and court preparation stages. And then again on August 18th, serious assault in the 900 block of 2nd Avenue East, which resulted later in the death of 44-year-old male from Owen Sound, died of his injuries. That homicide investigation is still on. And finally, you'll recall there was quite a bit of public interest in around the residence on 29th Street West. with Peel Region Police coming up and doing some work on that as well. Actually led to some community meetings that we attended with members of that community. So that was a case where we were working in conjunction with Peel Region Police as well, assisting them there with their investigation, which led to them laying some kidnapping charges back in October. That, in summary, is our joint forces operations. Okay, special investigations. This is another one report on regularly. So special investigations unit is separate from the Ontario, or sorry, the Office of the Independent Police Review Director. So they essentially look at any incident in which there's a possibility that a criminal offense may have been committed by a police officer. And they have a threshold which is fairly low in terms of notification, which is basically anytime someone receives a serious injury or an allegation of sexual assault is made. We're obligated to report to them or to notify them. So last year we had 3 incidents which resulted in triggering that mandate, which resulted in our notification. We also had 2 other incidents which originated in 22, so we would have reported them last year. They weren't cleared as of the time that we did the report. So in September 2022, we had a male prisoner that passed away at the Tim Hortons, literally just a block away here, very shortly after having been released from custody. So we notified the SIU, they investigated, and it wasn't until January 24th that the director communicated with the chief and advised they had closed the file. There were no reasonable grounds, the evidence proceeded on charges, and the director's report in that case strongly suggests that the man consumed lethal doses of drugs after his release from police custody. December 2022, we had a male party received an injury during his arrest, resulted in the SIU being notified and chose to invoke and investigate. April 14th, the director advised Chief Ambrose file was closed, no reasonable grounds, the evidence proceeded charges. April of last year, we contacted the SIU involving a male who went into medical distress while we were there attending a domestic disturbance. SIU initially invoked their mandate to investigate, but later withdrew after speaking with the complainant and determining the injury was self-inflicted and in no way related to the police response. So, and I even added in the piece, I would say the quick actions by the responding officer in this case probably saved that individual's life. So, but it did trigger a notification. And then finally, December 2023, the SIU contacted him, now received an injury to his hand from the probes of a conducted energy weapon. During an arrest, they were notified and chose not to invoke their mandate as the injury did not meet the threshold. And in another incident, December 23, the SIU notified out of an abundance of caution when the Owen Sound Police became aware that the victim of a fatal motor vehicle collision near Springmount, which would be the jurisdiction and not ours, had interactions with our officers in the hours just prior to their death. The chose not to invoke their mandate or investigate in that case. So that's the summary of our SIU involvement. 123.
Staffing report is just provided for information. We're not going to go through the ins and outs.
Yeah, we'll go through the ins and outs, but it's lengthy. There are a number of new hires, there are a number of staff transfers, a number of resignations and retirements. I think that speaks to some of that speaks to the jobs in the economy, the ability to switch positions, some changes in relation to that, and it also reflects on the amount of work that goes into HR and HR positions and filling positions within the service without a dedicated HR individual.
Be thankful you don't have 2 HR managers.
We'll take one.
Exactly, right?
That's sorry, I just to say that call back to 2019 recollection is 1 or 2. It just seemed to be something that happened on occasion, and it's morphed 4 years later to I don't think a day goes by that we're not processing applications around it's just become this constant thing that my goodness just doesn't stop.
So we have a comprehensive report here on collision statistics for the city of Owen Sound. This was put together by Accident Support Services, who runs our collision reporting center, who we're in partnership with. So I'm just gonna go over a couple points from it really quickly. Some encouraging news in 2023, we only had 490 collisions, which is down from 2022 when we had 558. So that's almost a 13% decrease in the number of collisions. What was also really good is that there's for the number of injuries, we only had 71 injuries compared to the year previous when there was 120. So that's almost a 41% decrease in injuries, which is really good to see. Just historically, so you have some frame of reference. I looked at some of our previous reports from the past years. So prior to COVID, we had 550 in 2017 for collisions. In 2019, 637. During COVID, for 2 years, we had 450, and then the number started to go back up in 2022 to 558. So to see the drop in 2023 that much, it's really good. What's apparent is a lot of people believe that collisions occur in our area because because of the weather here, which isn't true. A lot of our collisions happen in the spring, the summer, and on roads that are dry and weather that is clear. I would say it has more to do with volume during those months that we get more collisions. As far as vehicle actions goes, a lot of the contributors are people changing lanes, turning left, slowing or stopping for traffic. Those are big contributors, or reversing out of a private drive, or reversing out of a parking spot. Fail to remain collisions, the bulk of those occur in our areas where shopping occurs. So in the River District, we see a bunch of them occurring there, and also up in the commercial area on 16th Street East. And most of those occur in parking lots. Collisions involving pedestrians, we only had 7 during the year. With cyclists, we had 8, and there's no patterns to that. They all happened in different areas of the city. We had no fatalities at all, which is great.
I don't think we've it was actually unusual, especially consider pedestrians and bicyclists and everything else.
Yeah.
Good news story, obviously, but I don't think we've had one.
Yeah, and a lot of we don't get the speed in the city, which causes the more violent collisions. We get the fatalities.
Except the bear in front of you. The bear in front of you.
Yeah. We had eight collisions that were all alcohol or drug related factor. The top intersections where collisions are occurring, so no surprise. 10th Street accounts for 8 out of the top 10 locations or intersections where collisions are occurring. The other 2 locations were 16th Street East and 9th Avenue East and 16th Avenue East and 16th Street East. With our top intersection being 10th Street and 3rd Avenue East. And it was pretty much tied with 10th Street and 9th Avenue East. And just one change from the previous reports that we've had, they also included a section recommending the best patrol times for these areas where the collisions are occurring. And in line with our operations plan, this information's been passed on to the City of Owen Sound, traffic and engineering staff, as well as Gray County. That's it for the collisions.
Thank you, sir.
Jeff, if of all the reasons for these or causes for these accidents, you didn't mention phones and you didn't mention running lights.
Yeah,
Do you ever check phones on at collisions, or are you allowed to, or what's the story there?
so you're pretty limited as far as search, like picking up a phone and searching it.
Right.
What we do see, and I think other police services see it as well, is you'll see collisions being listed as follow too closely, and they're actually cell phones.
Yeah.
Where somebody has ran into the back of somebody else, and then
Right. So you don't,
they don't disclose that they were on their phone at the time,
right.
and
So you don't have stats.
no, where we do get information that they're using a phone, they can be charged with using the handheld device and also careless driving.
Right.
Yeah.
If there's an accident causing death, is that a completely different story? Would you'd be looking into the phone then?
Yes, and we can also look into the data that gets recorded in the vehicle. We'll seize the vehicle and execute a warrant on it to get that information.
Okay, but it's gotta be elevated to.
Yeah.
Okay,
And we have different investigators for those collisions. We have 2 trained at our service that are can investigate more serious collisions. And we will sometimes call in the help of another bigger service that has dedicated staff that investigate fatalities.
okay, thanks.
Great. Moving on to the next item, optic fee increase.
I've been kicked out of the internet here, and I don't have those numbers right in front of me, so
Okay.
maybe we'll put that up to February,
Okay.
as a result, just like references are available.
All right, good. And also there was some correspondence from the OPP regarding section 14.
Yeah, so just so that the board's aware, I received correspondence from the OPP that in terms that they'll continue to under section 14 to assist them as outlined in the Police Services Act to assist with things. So if we need assistance for any type of investigation, that'll continue, and then they're going to revisit the agreements and sign new agreements under the new CSPA when it comes into effect. But in the interim, everything remains status quo, even though the actual agreement has expired.
All right, and one last item, we had an individual apply for a taxi license. That license application was referred by the police chief, and under the bylaw, the individual is allowed to appeal it, chief's decision. Getting closed, we heard from this individual where he discussed the personal information. And after hearing the individual, the board agreed with the chief decision to not grant this individual taxi license. So just to wrap that one up, can I have a motion to confirm support of the chief's decision to not grant the license? Right. Cindy, second, next 30.
Doesn't matter.
All in favor? Carried, thank you. Right, next meeting is February 21st. Now we'll move back into close and shuffle.
Thanks, Dwayne.
Thanks, Dwayne. Have a good one.